Okay, today we're here with Nick Ryan on Meet the Media. Thanks, Nick, for your time.
Hi, Linda. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. And good segue. How are you doing and how are you going with the family at home?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. We're all still breathing, all still in in complete pieces. I mean, there's been a few moments where I thought a family of five would work better as a family of four or three or two, sometimes even one. But on the whole, no, we've all been pretty good. I've said, on more than one occasion, I'd rather be doing this on 20 acres in Clare than in a Bondi apartment for some of those people in those sorts of situations. I reckon that'd be pretty tough. And like I said, isolation be all right. I reckon if you were doing it on your own or with one other adult and you had access to your cellar and you're all okay. But having to manage kids through this is a whole different process as well. And they're holding up remarkably well. But I think we were talking just before we came on air that school's back next week, and I'm absolutely happy to follow the chief medical officer's advice that the kids can go back to school, because I think they need it as much as I do.
I don't think you're on your own there for sure. Absolutely. So I can see that you are at home. I'm guessing you're in the backyard or the front yard there.
Yeah, in the backyard here.
Is there something you want to share behind the scenes with us that perhaps people haven't seen of Nick Ryan before?
No, well, that's my veggie garden over that way. I don't know if you can see that, with a pretty ordinary rabbit-proof fence, which is basically just vineyard bird netting. Look, it's funny. I was away when all this really started to blow up. I was in the States having a look at a distillery in Oregon, actually, so in Portland.
Yep.
And it's funny, I came home. I had to do 2 weeks in isolation when I got home, and my partner's parents have sold their farm and bought a little place in Clare that they haven't moved into yet. So I was shoved into an empty little house in town with one chair and a TV and a bed, and that was about it. And meanwhile, at home, Belinda had gone and panic bought a menagerie. Came home and there were 6 guinea fowl and 4 chickens and 2 bantams and a kitten, and the veggie garden all sort of set up. We'd actually done that just before I went away, but it's kind of nice to have at least some sense of self-sufficiency. The chickens aren't laying yet, the slack bastards, but it is slightly reassuring to know that those things are around. I think there's 2 big veggie beds. I reckon they'll probably last me 2 days, but it's the thought that counts.
Are you growing anything in them yet?
Oh yeah. No, they're coming along really well. What's in there? There's Brussels sprouts, cabbages, fennel, kale. Well, no, Cavolo Nero, rainbow chard, beetroot, garlic, leeks, fennel, radishes. So yeah.
Gosh, on fire.
I just need to learn to grow steak and I'll be okay.
Absolutely. So tell us, Nick, are you still receiving wine samples?
Yeah. Look, it's the writing stuff. I mean, the Australian column is obviously still intact, and that's the key thing for me. But it is, so the paper is not printing that section of the paper, what they call the life section. Because all the papers are, people, newsrooms have shut down and people are working from home, and they're trying to pull newspapers together with everyone working remotely, which puts the whole process under a bit of strain. So I don't know. It's probably a slight wake up call to see that when things are under strain, what's the first thing that goes, and it's the 2 pages where my column sits that, you know, a wine, restaurants, fancy cars, and, you know, fashion. So obviously, you know, there are essential workers and non-essential workers, and in the bigger picture, you know, maybe we're considered non-essential workers. But I mean, I'm still writing the column, and it's still running online. And, you know, everything that the paper is telling me is that as soon as there is some kind of settling down, and people they get a better handle on the process of putting the paper out, those pages will come back in physical form.
Yeah.
But for now, it's online only. Yeah, my Sunday Mail column, you know, which is, you know, the non-wine column, that's going to fortnightly. Those pages are getting squeezed as well. So there are definite losses going on here. And the other thing is, it's a lot of the random stuff, or the ad hoc commission stuff is just completely disappeared. So usually in any sort of given week, you've got your settled work and the stuff that you've got to get done and you're committed to all the time. And then there's always, you know, a couple of things that come through, and, you know, that's a lot of time the cream on the top, and that stuff has disappeared entirely. And obviously a lot of the hosting work and the events work and the dinners and those sorts of things has, you know, that disappeared in a period of about 48 hours. I just sort of sat back and watched my diary blow up. So, you know, it's certainly not as busy as I would normally be, or as, you know, I'd like to be. But, you know, it's a chance to sit back and take stock, so to speak.
So to speak.
I don't know what stock is doing, but well, he's taking stock as well.
Indeed. If producers were to send you samples, what's your preferred style? What should they do?
Oh, look, it's still just sort of working as it always has. I'm still getting into the, you know, the post office. I've just thrown the ball to the dog. I've been in, you know, got a bit of stuff this morning, so it's all saying, you know.
You don't want them to ring you first or email you first.
No, look, I've always said, you know, and I don't think anything changes in this situation to the way it is normally. It's not a bad idea to send an email and say, look, stuff is coming. Do you want it? It's probably easier because I'm pretty useless on keeping on top of the email, that, you know, that opt out rather than opt in thing always works better. Like, you know, if you don't want to see something, let us know, otherwise we'll send it. I think that's probably still the best way to go. So no, it's fine. I'm not getting into my office. I'm sort of doing it all at home, which, you know, has sort of challenges. So I'm probably not doing the whole, you know, line 30, 40 things up at once. I'm a bit more sort of specific, trying to do more snack size tasting sessions, you know, squeezing it in around screaming kids.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's kind of business as usual, as much as it can be.
Great. Hey, tell us this. What, I see you've been online a bit lately. What's the thing you've seen online other than yourself?
I don't look at myself. I hate watching.
Oh, me too.
That stuff I've been doing is specifically for the Good Food and Wine Show, which is, you know, event that I've worked with for the last sort of 7 or 8 years. So, you know, and they've been wanting to get a whole lot of online content going to, you know, to keep their community in some way satiated while they're, you know, because the first of those shows was due for the end of next month. And obviously, you know, 20,000 people going through a convention centre over 3 days is not really what's going to happen at the end of next month. So those shows have all been put back to the end of the year. So they're just trying to keep some activity around that. What I reckon is interesting, self-serving and interesting, is so I've been doing some wine stuff, obviously enough. Matt Moran, Colin Fastnidge have been doing, you know, cooking demos. Maggie Beer's doing one this afternoon, but I suspect it's the subject more than the presenter. But the wine, my wine videos have been getting significantly more views than the chefs. So I don't know whether that's because everyone is just getting stuck into booze at the moment, and I mean that's clearly going on. And if you look at, I kind of expect it from my wine friends, but when you look at civilians out there and how they're dealing with isolation, I think people are cracking a bottle more often than they perhaps would have, perhaps earlier in the day than they once might have. Anecdotally, we're hearing that booze deliveries are pretty strong. So I think in times of trouble, people look for comfort, and people look for comfort in wine, and that's a great thing. So it's nice to think that these chefs who think they're all bloody superstars and all getting paid more than me, that maybe when people want to hear more about wine than seeing someone do another coq au vin or whatever it might be. So having said that, Maggie will be on there this afternoon, and she'll probably blow us all out of the water because everyone loves Maggie. I think there's something in that, and something that we can all take out. The other side is that I think that thirst for communication from wine people, that thirst for knowledge out there in the market is still really strong. And if anything, this is all going to make us a lot better at communicating in ways like this. I know I've been slack on it. I've never had that much of a presence, and don't go out filming myself or any of those sorts of things. But I'm thinking I'm going to have to do more of that in the future. And I think we're all going to have to do more of that. So back to the original question: who's doing good stuff? I think Brendan Carter's been getting a bit of traction with his sort of happy hours daily, and I like the way that he's been able to bring other people into that, and even physically, although socially distanced, but physically have some sort of people to talk to. That's a rare commodity at the moment, and it's actually nice to see two people who aren't related in the same room, even if they are a good distance apart. It has been quite amazing to see the number of people in wine who are getting out there and trying to do something in this environment. Everyone, I've seen more winemakers on film in the last, or digitally enhanced in the last few weeks than I ever have. So everyone's trying to to be seen out there, and you can understand that sometimes there is the whiff of desperation about it all, I guess, but we're all desperate. We're all trying to remind the world that we're out there and that we exist, and I think it's admirable that that so many people are getting out there and having a crack. And it's interesting too that a lot of time, going back to the samples thing, I'm getting emails following up from sample sends that say, look, the winemaker is available to talk with you, over Zoom or something, whenever, when you're tasting and do that sort of thing. I think I'm going to try and catch up with Stephen and Prue Henschke on, Monday. I've got to go through those wines, and, they're making themselves very available to everyone to, to sit down and, because normally, when they release Hill of Grace and those, top tier wines from there, they fly us all in somewhere, or get us all to the winery, or get everyone together so we can have a look at the wines together and have a really good conversation around that. So obviously that can't happen, this year. So it's a matter of sit down with the wines and then try and tap into Stephen and Prue, via these, via Zoom or whatever platform people are using. So it's interesting. A lot of talk around this has been people are going to realise how much can be done this way. I think we'll probably see it become a much more normal part of our working lives, this sort of communicating like we are now. And
I think I think you're right. I think it's forced the hand almost of people that we knew it was available before, but we just stuck to the face-to-face because it is kind of nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, the lunch is always better. When you can all get together, do these things in nice restaurants or whatever else. Always better than the toasted sandwich I'll probably have, Monday after I taste those wines. But the important thing is the wine itself, and the important thing is getting the story, that exists, in that bottle, and then there's no way, nothing to say that can't be done, like we're talking now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I just saw your dog go past
Winnie.
there. What's your dog's name?
Winston, come here.
Let's see Winston.
Come here. Up here. Up.
I think Winston's getting quite popular.
Yeah.
There we go. Gorgeous.
Yeah, he's a good dog.
Hey, Nick, what's your message to producers or wineries out there? What do you think that your parting words, I guess?
My parting words are, it's a resilient community, and it's it's an agricultural business, and we're used to tough things, but you should never try and predict the future. But I reckon it's going to be. I can pretty confidently say there won't be many vintages like 2020. That when we start opening these wines, in a few years' time and look back, we will raise a glass and say, up yours 2020. I think these wines will be testament to a really tough time, and hopefully we'll see good wines out of all of this, and they will be little reminders of a very unusual period in our lives, that this was always looking like a tough vintage in most places, even before the virus came and shook us all around. So it's just another layer of complexity on an already pretty tricky year. But the strength of the wine community and the resilience of the wine community is something that is often, tested and often comes through that with aplomb. So I've got no doubt that, that same thing will happen. There will be casualties. I think that's, there's probably nothing sure, but those people that are in it for the long haul, and those people that are in it because there's nothing else that they would be doing, those people that are real lifers, I think, they'll push on and push through, and we can all be reassured by the fact that, people are still liking the product. People still need the product right now more than ever before. So it's interesting that when, there's nothing else to spend their money on, so people are spending money on wine. So maybe there is some silver lining in this great big shit sandwich.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Really appreciate your time. It's been nice to meet with you at home, and I'm sure we will see you very soon.
Yeah, hopefully. And in somewhere in a front bar somewhere. I really want a beer off tap. That is what I'm craving.
Awesome. See you, mate.
All right. Thanks, Linda.